You're tuned in to the Binge It Babe podcast with your host, me, Candace Estelle. All right, babes, let's get binging. Hey, hi, hello, and how are you, babes? Welcome to the 2024 bonus episode where me and my Buddy, will be discussing Love Actually. So, hello, Buddy. Welcome to the show for the last time this year. Are you ready?
I am ready, Candace. Hello to you and hello to all the babes out there.
All the babes.
All the babes. I tell you, I have had so much fun doing these Christmas shows with you.
Yeah, they're wonderful. I've had a blast. It's really nice to have a co-host because a lot of times it's just me yelling into the void.
Well, maybe we could do something for other holidays, like Arbor Day or something like that.
Absolutely. For Arbor Day, what should we watch? An Inconvenient Truth?
An Inconvenient Tree. I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But
we'll figure it out. You can come back whenever you want. But
well, thanks. I appreciate that, and I will have you on my podcast again as well. Which it is. Oh wait, I got to get you on the Buddy's Book Buddies. We'll talk about books.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, like you said, we are going to talk about one of your all-time favorites, and that is Love Actually.
Boo.
This is my DVD of it, and yes, this came up. I think we talked about this. It somehow worked its way into one of the episodes we did of my podcast about the TV series Friends. Somehow we got on the topic of Love Actually. I can't remember how that happened because you and I have a tendency to.
You and Lisa were doing your Christmas in September thing where you watched The Holiday and Love Actually, and I said Love Actually sucks and The Holiday's the best.
Well, and as viewers and listeners to one of our previous episodes knows that we talked about The Holiday. And we said that is just wonderful. I absolutely love The Holiday. But I also love Actually. And I was a little surprised, just a little bit, when you said that you hated it. But I know other people feel that way as well. It is not a traditional Christmas movie. Much like The Holiday is not a traditional Christmas movie. Because there's...
And that's not really my issue with it. And don't worry, I'll be sure to bitch about it quite a bit in this, episode. But if in case anyone's wondering, well, Candace, why are you doing this if you hate this movie? Because I told Buddy that he could pick one, and then he picked this one, even though I hated and he knew that. And I would love to have been a dictator and been like, no. But I thought maybe for bonus content, it'd be fun for me to be really sour about something I watched because most of the time I'm happy. I think the last episode I did where I was super sour about what I watched was the Final Destination series.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm going to consult my notes here because I took notes for this. And
Yay.
And I know you told me that you're playing with your hat there. Let's talk about can we talk about what you're wearing? Because it looks like
we can always.
Yes. What do you have going on there? It looks like is that a top or am I seeing more than just a top?
Oh, you are seeing Speedy pajamas.
Oh, I love that.
Are holiday themed. Mickey and Minnie Mouse,
Speedy
pajamas.
Here.
They're drinking hot chocolate. They're snowmen. It says "Let It Snow" on it.
Oh,
as a grown woman in her 30s, you gotta have Speedy pajamas for the holiday season. Okay?
Yeah, I'm a grown man, a little older than that, and I kind of want faded pajamas now.
You can have them. You can have whatever you want. I'm so sick of people being like, as an adult, you can't do that. As an adult, you can't break the law or do stuff immoral, but can you have fun stuff? Can you have toys now that you're old enough to buy it? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's sort of like, and my wife Lisa and I have that mindset most of the time. It's like, we'll have something like ridiculous for dinner, or we'll have oh, okay, well, we're having Pop-Tarts for dinner. It's like you're an adult, you can do whatever you want.
You can. And maybe Pop-Tarts for dinner isn't always the best choice, but is it a good one for right now? Absolutely.
Exactly. But love those pajamas, Candace. They're awesome.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And the hat, of course, beautiful.
Yes, we're in the holiday spirit now. I know it's after Christmas, but you got to stay in the holiday spirit. It's still the holiday season.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if we talked about this during our other episodes, but what do you have on your plate there?
My cookies.
They are cookies.
We did talk about them in the first one. I'm just eating some butter cookies. I've eaten some for every episode. So we got my butter cookies, we've got the hot chocolate in the little Snoopy Christmas mug with my Woodstock stir.
I
You know,
love that.
we've got the green here. We're decked out in holiday things. What
We
about
are,
you?
and for those who didn't see it in the other episodes, I have my Buddy the Elf cup here, which is the got. Every time I turn this around, I'm afraid I'm going to spill it all over my laptop. But world's best cup of coffee.
World's best cup of
It's actually
coffee.
it's actually tea because I only have one cup of coffee in the morning or in the day, and I already did that.
Yeah, I have no cups of coffee ever because I wake up like this.
So. You don't need coffee.
I don't need coffee. Even if I have caffeine, I feel real weird and jittery.
So I'm curious, my friend, about Love Actually. I don't mean to take the reins here. This is your show, but oh,
Well, I'd appreciate if you took the reins a little bit here because I hate this movie and I'm only here to be a Debbie Downer.
well, how long ago did you first see this movie? I mean, it came out in 2003, so it's been around a while, and
Yes,
you were just a child then. So I don't know if you saw it as a child, maybe, or a
I
little
did. I've
older.
seen it as a child, I've seen it as a teen, I've seen it as an adult. I think the most recent time I saw it was about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. So you've seen it multiple times, obviously, and
Mhm.
are there aspects of it that you like?
Absolutely, there are.
I thought so. I remember us talking about this before. It's got quite a cast. I mean, my goodness, folks. It's got Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, Laura Linney, Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Keira Knightley, Rowan Atkinson. Those are just the ones on the top of on the front of the DVD case. That's not even to mention several others who were in it who maybe weren't famous at the time, but went on to become famous. For example, Chris Marshall, who went on to be on Death in Paradise and another show and
Thomas
multiple.
Brody Sanger, who is in the Maze Runner series.
I didn't know he was in that. I know he went on. I remember seeing him in Game of Thrones at one point. But yeah, he was great in this movie, and so many others. Laura Linney, who we mentioned in the previous episode that we did, where we were talking about her acting in Jim Carrey. Gosh,
Truman Show.
yeah, Truman Show. Thank you very much. There was a helicopter flying over and it distracted me.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, quite a cast in this. Bill Nye or Nighy. I always say his
It's
name
Bill
wrong.
Nye,
It's
just like
Nye.
the science guy, but it's not. For
Oh.
those of you who don't know who Bill Nye is, he does play the vampire prime minister to the Wizarding World in one of the Harry Potters, I believe the first Deathly Hallows.
The
But you
science
probably
guy was in
also
that?
know him. Yeah, you probably also know him as the vampire in Underworld series.
Oh, okay. I did not see the Underworld series. I just saw him in something else recently, like a very recent movie. And gosh, I can't think of it. But whenever I watch him, he's just brilliant. He's a fantastic actor.
He's cool. He's got a really interesting British vocal fry that, like, is very interesting and attractive. Not in, like, a sexy way, but just in a, "Yeah, man, I'll listen to you talk."
Yeah.
I actually am about to listen to, a Douglas Adams book. I'm going to do the audiobook for it because Bill Nye is the, narrator for when you hear him.
Whoa. What book
Yeah.
is that, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't think it's a second Dirk Gently. It's not a Dirk Gently, but it's like a Starship in Time or something like that. I'm not 100% because
Oh, okay.
it's not one of the hitchhikers, which I have
Oh, okay.
here.
Oh, well,
It
well, my gosh, I would think that he would be a brilliant narrator. I'm sure he's fantastic.
I'm super excited. I love an audiobook, you know, sometimes you're busy and you just can't sit and do this, but you can listen while you do dishes or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I was finishing up Dirk Gently, agency, holistic detective agency, and it was like
The
other
book?
books by Douglas
Oh,
Adam and
okay.
it like gave the second Dirk Gently, it gave a little excerpt and then it went into this one and it was like this one's narrated by Bill Nye. And I was like, "What?" And then he
Wow.
started narrating it, and I was like, "Hell yeah, son, this is good."
Well, not to stray too far off of our topic, but how did you like the Dirk Gently book? Because I've that's one I've been curious about.
Uh,
I tried one of the TV adaptations of that, and I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, and I think I stopped after a few episodes. So that's made me a
The
little weary of
BBC
trying
one
the
or the
book.
Netflix one?
I believe it was the Netflix one.
So I just watched that today. Like, I
Oh,
just
okay.
watched the whole 1st season today, and I can tell you that aside from the character name,
Mm-hmm.
Dirk Gently, nothing else is the same in the story
Oh, okay. All
at
right.
all,
Okay.
at all.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will keep that in mind.
Did you ever read the Hitchhikers ones?
I read the first Hitchhiker book, and I liked it quite a bit.
Okay.
I own the other ones. I just haven't gotten to them yet.
So I haven't read them before. But the thing is that I'm a software engineer, well, I have transitioned to be technical writer at this point. But I'm a software engineer and I went to a school in the 42 network, which is literally named after the Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy series.
yeah.
And so I was in the 42 network and I was like, "Oh, I should read the books." I hated the movie. It came out when I was a kid and I just didn't get it. That's
I
with
didn't bring.
Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, one of my projects is called "So Long and Thanks for All the Fish" that I
Oh,
had to do, and
nice.
it was a graphical, one, so I thought, "You know what? I'm a nerd, I have nerd hobbies, I should probably go ahead and do this." So I bought the series so that I can read them finally.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, our conversation here has made me want to reread the first book and then read the others because I did
Uh
like the first book quite a bit.
By what I've read, the Hitchhikers ones are considered better than the Dirk Gently ones.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that
If I'm
too.
being really honest, I picked the Dirk Gently holistic detective agency because it said that it was going to be really funny and it had a picture of a cat on the cover.
That's not the worst reason in the world.
Oh, I love a good cat. So I was like,
Who
all right, I'll
doesn't?
try it.
Yeah, you would love it. I have a whole cat calendar here, which is just wonderful. It makes me happy every
Oh,
time I see
adorable.
it.
I have a whole cat over here.
Ah, I
So
have a whole cat somewhere. He's probably
I
sleeping.
have a whole cat over there too. It's got,
Don't tell me about
it's
any
got things
half
everywhere.
cats you have around or anything, because that might freak me out, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all.
No. Well, speaking of things you don't like at all, let's get back to this movie. So, for those who don't know, well, probably an odd choice to be watching this, as we've said in our other shows. Love Actually, well, came out in 2003. It had all those actors and actresses that I mentioned, plus many others. But there's multiple stories in this, multiple storylines that deal with. Some deal with love relationships, some deal with friendships, some deal with marriages that maybe are suffering in one way or another, with potential adultery and other things going on. And another is about a relationship between a woman and her brother, and there's all kinds of things, which is one of the things that appeals to me about the movie. They're all loosely connected because these characters do have some are like related by blood, some are friends. They're all connected loosely, but all the stories pretty much stand on their own as well, and it's interesting.
I
It's
have a
different.
question.
Yes.
Is this a Gary Marshall?
No. This is let me see, actually. It's really nice having the case around because I can tell you exactly who directed it. The
Yeah,
director of
that's why
the
I asked.
Oh no. It was written and directed by Richard Curtis, who also went on to do he did Notting Hill. I think did we talk about
Mhm.
Notting Hill once before?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Notting Hill, another big Hugh Grant movie, Four Weddings and a Funeral. And I think he did something else with Hugh Grant as well. But so yeah, he's a British filmmaker, and he has done quite a few successful, usually romantic comedy sorts of things.
Okay, okay. I asked because I don't know if you remember or aware of like Gary Marshall has done quite a few movies before he passed away, like Valentine's Day and New Year's Day and all those
Hmm.
movies where it's the same premise of like all of these separate stories that at the end we figure out how they're interconnected.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot that. I forgot
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I can see why you
What to
asked that
Expect When
then.
You're Expecting is another one that's like that. So that's why I was like, "Oh, is it him?" Because they are standalone stories, but they are completely interconnected, and you find that out at the end. Like, this
Oh, okay.
person knows that person and stuff like that for Love Actually as well.
It's strange. I liked quite a few movies by Gary Marshall, but I never saw those ones that you mentioned. I was always interested in them, but
They're sweet, they're just like, "I'm just gonna pop something in and have a nice little hour and a half to myself," you know?
oh, that's nice. Well, one of the ultimate movies like that was Pretty Woman, which he did. That was one of his biggest films. That was just this very sweet movie, and it makes you feel good.
I think it is sweet, but I would like to point out that the number of women who left college and or dropped out of high school to become sex workers at that time significantly increased because of that movie,
I had no idea. Oh my goodness!
because they
Wow.
thought that that was going to be what would happen to them. All they had to do was go out to LA and be sex workers, and that's so it's actually got a kind of sinister, you know
Wow. Wow, I did not know that. Yeah, and obviously there are things in the plot. You don't want to glorify prostitution or anything along those lines, but in some ways
I
it
just
did.
don't think most people who do sex work would choose to do it if they had other options that would pay them as well.
Yeah.
I have no issue with sex work. I have done sex work in some capacity before. I've been a sex phone operator before. I tried that for a little bit. I've been a cocktail waitress at a strip club before, and I've done cam girling to see what that was like as well.
Oh, okay.
Um, so it's not something where I'm like, I'm above it, so I could never appreciate it. I don't feel that way, but I also don't feel like most women would choose it if they didn't feel like they had to in those moments.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you are absolutely right. And this was well, I mean, we don't want to probably spend too much time on Pretty Woman. But you look at her character. I think it was Vivian.
Vivian, yeah.
It's like, was she in a spot where she had to do that? I mean, I don't know much. I guess we don't know much about Vivian, but still, it's yeah. The
Well,
movie
I
is.
mean, I know that her and her friend Kit in that movie are at that point where it's like she mentions how Kit is helping her out by even letting her live there. So I think
Oh
he was
yeah, times were
the
really good.
alternative was homelessness. And
Yeah,
at that point, it's like, yeah, then do what you have to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. But that's boy, that's really interesting. I know I'm kind of stumbling my words here. I'm just still blown by what you told me about the amount of women that actually dropped out of school
Yeah,
to do that
to
because of this
pursue that,
movie.
hoping that they would be found by some rich, handsome man.
Wow. Wow. Well, there's nothing quite like that in Love Actually. Although you're making a face, tell you what. Before I go any further with this, I want to turn it over to you. When you first saw this movie, what was one of the things that jumped out at you that you did not like,
Well, when
or
I
maybe
first
something
saw the
over
movie,
or over time,
yeah, I'll
however you
go
want
with
to talk
over
about it.
time because I
Okay.
was quite young when it came
Yeah.
out. And the first couple of times I saw it were definitely not things where I was like, I'll put this on. Honestly, I've watched it more recently because it's so beloved by people that I'm like, I remember rewatching it as an adult because I was like, oh, everyone loves this. I should, let me plug in some warmth. And then I watched it and I was like, what? So there are some great moments, and we'll talk about that whenever you ask me. But
Okay.
for things that really annoy me, um, can't stand adultery, can't stand infidelity, have a very hard time with those storylines, in books and movies and TV shows. I'm never ever okay with it.
Yeah.
It's not
No,
a
me
reason to
either.
hate a movie, but it is something where it's just like it really put a damper on it. So the Alan Rickman, Emma Thompson infidelity, cheating, her having to listen to Joni Mitchell, the fact that she said that she was so able to do that and hone in on it because of what Kenneth Braga did her to her via Helena Bonham Carter. It's hard. It's hard because you look at that and you go, man, she's not even acting. She's just having to show you what her real pain was like a little bit earlier on in her life because it
I
had to
didn't
happen
know.
a
I didn't know
lot.
those things that you just mentioned. I had no idea what the hell Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah,
Wow.
so Kenneth Braga left Emma Thompson for Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh yeah, did not know that. Wow.
Mhm. And then Helena obviously ended up with Tim Burton for a while. I think Tim Burton was also married when that happened,
Oh
which is a
yeah.
shame because I am a fan of Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah,
but I
she's
am not
wonderful.
okay with adultery or people who are like,
No.
"Well, if he wants it, oh well."
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. But yeah, no, Emma Thompson was like, yeah, I was able to play off of my real life things, and so it's hard. And
Yeah.
also, the only other thing I had seen Alan Rickman in as a kid is like Die Hard, and then him as Snape, and it's like, is this guy ever a good guy? And
Yeah.
when you're younger, you can't differentiate as well.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, I'm like, I like Alan Rickman. He's a good actor. He was funny. He did good things. But it is a harder when you're watching stuff and you're just like, how could you do that to Emma Thompson?
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so that's a storyline that I wouldn't say makes me hate the movie, but it's a hard one. And
It
it's
is a
it's one
hard
of
one.
those things, especially as a woman, it's portrayed so often, right? So we're just like, that's how it is. And that's not how it should be. And
No.
that's not how it is, for people where they're just like, yeah, well, you're gonna hit an age and you're gonna have kids and he's gonna have his eyes wander because that's how that goes and get over it. And I just have a hard time with that.
I can understand that.
I never really talk about my dad, and I don't care to because I have no connection to him whatsoever anymore. But as a teen, one of the things he would say to me is, Angelina Jolie and Jennifer Aniston, those are the most beautiful women in the world, and they get cheated on. So what makes you think you'll ever be any different?
Wow.
And so
Wow.
that was the standard that was set for me as a child,
Ugh,
where
boy,
I was just
that's
like, I will always be cheated on. And thankfully, that's not been the case for me. But it is one of those things where I think me, more than a lot of people, I'm incredibly sensitive to it. So seeing it, knowing it, not necessarily fake for her. It's
yeah.
not real in that moment, but it was real for her before that.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Um, some of the storylines, however, that I just cannot stand is the Hugh Grant storyline with his assistant. A, power dynamics are pretty messed up there. But B, they are constantly referring to her as the chubby girl. And
Yes,
it's disgusting. That
it
woman
is.
is maybe a size 10,
Yeah,
12. So
exactly.
that's considered a mid-sized woman.
Yeah.
Even if she wasn't, even if she was a plus size woman at any size, you don't just sit there and constantly refer to someone as the chubby girl, the fat
Yeah.
girl, the one with the big thighs. And that's very much so that early 2000s trope where everyone had the heroin chic look. And so it's one of those like disgusting things that the moment it comes on, it's like I can't enjoy any of the storyline because he's like, I love you even though, like
Yeah.
I'm Hugh Grant and I'm willing to sleep with you. And it's like, put your dick away then, because that's not a compliment,
Yeah.
like,
Well, if I
and
recall,
so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think his character was really ever calling her chubby or fat. Others around him were. And
Yeah, not to her face, but he doesn't defend at any point. He doesn't stop
yeah,
them.
right.
At one point, someone says, "You mean the chubby girl?" And he says, "Would we call her chubby?" And she goes, "Yeah, pretty sizable ass there." And he just goes, "Huh, bro,
Yeah. Yeah,
speak
you're
up."
right. You're right. Yeah, he didn't speak up there.
That like I know you're British, but come on,
Yeah.
say something. Um,
Yeah, and like
yeah.
you said, she
So
is she is not no one would say that she is overweight looking at her. I mean,
no,
beautiful woman. Yeah.
but more importantly, you shouldn't talk about people like that regardless of who they are or their size.
No,
Even when
exactly.
someone's like the worst person in the world to me, the easiest thing you can do is make fun of someone's appearance, right? It takes no wit, it takes
Yeah,
no gumption, it
I
takes
agree.
nothing. So if you need to insult someone, like if they're your enemy, it's so much better to do something that has nothing to do with their physical appearance. A, because you shouldn't stoop down that low. And I know I have
They're cheap
before.
shots.
Yeah, it's a cheap shot and it's an easy shot. And so, yes, I've definitely said stuff like that before, but it doesn't make it okay,
Yeah, you're right.
Um, it's better to attack your enemies on their character because that'll sit with them forever. If you call people fat for too long, they're just gonna, you know, they're gonna lose weight and they're gonna look great. And then what are you gonna do? You're just gonna motivate people. No, it's another thing with my childhood specifically, like, weight was such a thing.
Yeah.
Um, I have a hard time with my weight now, where I feel very bad about my size right now. Because my parents were both, like, you know, overweight and they were not so happy about it and they were very mean to each other about it. I remember again a lovely dad story like when I was around 14 and I started to finally develop in any way because I was a late bloomer and I got a stretch mark on my inner thigh um because I literally went from a toothpick to like having curves overnight it felt like, you know.
Mhm.
Um and my dad grabbed my inner thigh which is not a place he should have been touching anyway.
No.
He grabbed my inner thigh and he goes, "Guess you're gonna be a fat piece of shit like everyone else, huh?" And I remember just being
Wow.
like
Ugh,
and
that's
I so
horrible.
now I'll just look at my inner thigh, you know, and I'll be like so for me,
Yeah.
any level of that fat shaming or body shaming in any way, I'm just disgusted by. And it doesn't matter if it's a cutesy, "Oh, it's a joke, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
No, it's
No,
not.
I get that. Yeah, it's nothing that should ever be, like, made light of or made fun of and or, turned into an insult, and yeah, I think, unfortunately, I mean, you see, it's not just this movie that has done that, it's movies,
No,
TV,
it's a
it's like
2000s thing.
yeah, and thankfully not so much anymore. I'm
No, thank
sure.
God.
Yeah.
And now older people are just like, "Oh, you guys are all so sensitive." And it's like, "Yeah, you know why you're such a hard monster? Because you
Mhm.
grew up hearing all this horrible stuff and you decided I had to deal with it, so will you." Like one of the movies you mentioned earlier that you really liked is Shallow Hal, and I was like, "You sure about that?" You know? That's
Yeah,
the premise of that movie is that, you know, he could only love her because he couldn't see what she really
yeah,
looked like.
right. Yeah.
What a horrible, horrible message. If you think about it, when that movie came out, I was probably around 8 to 10 years old, and that's
Mhm.
the messages that I got
Yeah.
growing
Yeah,
up,
you're
you
right.
know? It
Yeah.
was that, and it was that weird, cayenne pepper diet all the time, where it
Oh,
was like you
yeah.
put water, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and, like, maple syrup, and that's all you would eat for, like, 3 to 5 days so you could lose 5 pounds, and I
Yeah.
remember being a teenager, and I would drink vinegar because it would make me just
Wow.
blow you out, you know, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Great, now I'm losing weight." And I was 90 pounds.
Wow. And there's
And
still
so
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Candace. I was just gonna say
no,
that
you
that
didn't. It's just that there's a lag.
yeah. Well, and like we said, thankfully I agree with something you said a couple minutes ago in that, you'll hear people say, "Oh, well, the people shouldn't be so sensitive about this stuff." Yeah, we should. You have to
Yeah.
like take other people into consideration. I belong to because I love like pop culture stuff from like the 70s, 80s and such. I'll belong to
Mhm.
like different Facebook groups, for about 70s movies, 80s movies, and they'll talk about scenes from these movies that may have had like offensive humor in them,
Mhm.
and people will be like, "Oh, well, you couldn't do this stuff now because people are all like, sissies or they're snowflakes or any number of sayings like that." And I'm like, "No, times have changed. You should have been taking those things into consideration back then, you know.
Yeah.
But now we should all know better." Because
Yeah.
thankfully enough people have come out publicly and said how harmful that has been to them. Like any number I've seen, stories along the lines of what you just shared from your own personal life. And
Yeah.
these things affect people, whether they're a child or an adult, and it's ridiculous.
I think Disney actually does it really well with a lot of their older films. They have a pre thing on there and it says, these films, you know, will discuss this or this or this. It was not okay then and it's not okay now,
Yes.
but this is the product of that time and we have not altered it for that reason.
Yeah.
And
I
I
saw
think
something like that on Disney myself. Yeah.
yeah, that's all you have to do. You
Yeah.
can still laugh at the thing if it's just something that has made you laugh before, because that's how your brain is going to work. But
Mm-hmm.
you can't sit there and go, "Well, everyone should be fine with it because I'm fine with it." I'm
Yeah.
fine with, gay people and trans people and, atheists and everything else, which is stuff a lot of people find not fine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then we're just have to I just sit there and I go, "Well, okay, if that's how you choose to be, you know, that's it. It's not for me. Maybe we won't be friends, whatever. But you don't get to just dictate that someone is not a good enough person or a strong enough person because they've chosen to no longer tolerate hate speech, which is
Yeah.
what that is,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I think an excellent example of an older movie, basically any of them, but a really good one is Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh,
That
yeah. Yeah.
is awful. It's awful if you actually watch it because at one point the jock guy gives his girlfriend as if she's not a human
Oh my
being
god, I forgot about
um
that.
to the nerd guy so that he can have sex with her, and he's so good at it that she's fine with it because she's asleep or drugged or something when it happens.
Oh, the '80s had
And
so much crap like that.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and so if I say it in plain language like that and you're still like, "Yeah, well no, but it's fine because it was funny or it's fine because she liked it." No. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
There's this old TikTok trend that just it cracks me up, but it's really dark and it's young people asking their grandmothers like their love story and
Oh boy.
the one of them is like, "Grandma, how did you meet grandpa?" And she's like, "Well, he asked me out and I told him no, and so he asked me out every day, and then he threatened to like something if I didn't go out with him, and so we did, and that's how we got together." And she goes, "Oh, grandma, you little victim." And it's like, exactly.
Oh my
That was what was
goodness.
acceptable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and let's be honest, it's men. A lot of
Mhm.
men
Yeah.
are upset that things aren't like that anymore because now they have to actually work and have effort and do things to be attractive to a woman instead of just staking claim, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I obviously there is a little bit of an age difference between you and I, and I I became an adult in the '80s, in the
Mhm.
late '80s, and boy oh boy, the times back then were even real life was sadly not too far removed from some of those types of movie scenes that you just described. It
No,
was,
I'm aware.
the stuff
It
that
was
I saw
also, in
around.
my opinion, one of the horniest decades.
Yeah, yeah. I think the '70s was probably even worse, because that was, pre-AIDS and everything, where people weren't even taking that kind of stuff into consideration.
Mhm.
But yeah, it used to astound me, like I don't want to sound like I'm a holier than thou person or anything, but the stuff I would see, like some of my coworkers and people I went to high school with, just the behavior that they displayed, in terms of, towards women and just towards dating and sex, and you get into drugs, and just like it's hard to believe now that, people viewed that as okay,
Yeah.
and it should have never been like that.
Yeah.
I guess we could say that about any number of things that we all know now is wrong. Like even getting into, well, just, things, racial type things. Just where we learn things over time. That, damn it, how did people not know this or think these things back then?
It's not that they didn't know, it's that they didn't care. And if
Yeah,
if I'm
you're
being
right.
honest as a woman still now, because I'm experiencing it probably more than you do,
Yeah,
um, a lot of people still don't care. A
I
lot
know.
of men still don't care. And like women couldn't have their own bank account until the 70s
Yeah,
or later, you
yeah,
know? So this isn't when people are like, "Oh, it was so long ago."
yeah,
And everything was fine at that time when I was growing up. No, it wasn't.
yeah,
No, it wasn't.
yeah.
Like the first black girl to get to go into an integrated school is in her 60s right now, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not very old,
No,
you know?
exactly.
Um so it's one of those things where like I really love 80s movies, like Weird Science and Pretty in Pink. I don't like
Yeah,
16 Candles as much, but like
yeah,
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Breakfast Club is okay.
yeah.
I love them, but I love them with an asterisk, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I
Yeah,
love them and then I go, but I don't love this.
yeah,
I'm tolerating it for other reasons,
yeah,
but I'll look and I'll say this has that little asterisk,
yeah.
like the MLB Hall of Fame where they have to put the asterisk after they find out that people were like doping or whatever, and they're like,
Yeah,
there it is. You
right.
still get to have your little mark in history, but you have an asterisk because
Yeah,
there's something there that
yeah,
that's altered.
exactly. Yeah. And that no, that for me, like in large part because of our conversation, will, you know, be maybe kind of how I think about like that part of Love Actually with
Yeah.
the Hugh Grant storyline. You know, it's like, well, and I've never sat there and said, "Oh yeah, make fat jokes about her." You know, she's
No.
ridiculously huge. I mean, I told you before when we talked about this, my wife and I when we watched it, we're like, this is really something that they were doing this. You know, just in the early 21st century. You know,
Yeah.
and even decades earlier, it wouldn't have been okay. But we're just kind of astounded by that, and hopefully it's as more and more time progresses, more people will look at those kinds of things in movies and put the asterisks there and say,
Yeah.
okay, I can enjoy aspects of this, but that part was really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, the body positivity movement annoys a lot of older people, I've noticed. Like, I've talked to someone who is just like, one of my friends is always saying how they're a queen and they're so beautiful, and she's like, "They're not even, like, skinny or anything." And I'm like, "So?"
Yeah.
Because they don't match your specific ideology of some beauty standard that's completely arbitrary and probably Eurocentric.
Yeah.
You've decided that she's not beautiful. Maybe she's not physically beautiful to you specifically, but if she feels beautiful, why do you feel entitled to take that from her?
Exactly. I hate that so much when I see that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy. It drives me
Yeah.
crazy. But let's move on to other things that I hate about this movie.
Let's do
Um,
that. Okay. All right. So we talked about
so
those two storylines.
So the other storyline that I just can't stand is the Keira Knightley
I knew you were going to
storyline.
say that one. Yeah.
Well,
Now,
yeah,
why
because I
why
told you
is
last
that? Because
time.
there's not like a big age gap there or anything.
It's creepy.
Well, yeah.
It's a creepy storyline. So it's one of those where they're trying to make it seem romantic. The guy, Mike or Mark or whatever, he's the guy from Walking Dead, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah. Andrew Lincoln.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so he is her new husband's um
Best friend.
best friend, and he's in love with her, and he never says anything to her. He's just really cold and mean to her and doesn't say anything. Immature.
Yeah.
And we romanticize this as if it's some like grand gesture that after the wedding he comes up and does the little sign thing to be like, say it's carolers, I've always been in love with you, blah blah blah, and she walks out and gives him a kiss and goes on. I wouldn't really consider that infidelity on her part, but what the is that as a friend? As
Yeah.
a friend, to have never been what? Man enough or able to communicate to your best friend and say, "Hey, I have really deep feelings for the woman you're dating, about to marry, your wife." At no point and then he makes this, like, huge romantic gesture, which people have emulated and redone for, like, proposals and all of that
Yeah.
stuff, as if it's something that happened that's romantic. It's not, it's creepy.
Yeah.
It's creepy to decide, "I really like you, and because I really like you, even though all of these other things are happening that I'm perfectly aware of, I'm going to tell you and put that on you as well because it's eating me up inside." At no point was her husband abusive, she should leave him, they're
Yeah.
not getting along, none of that. It's just, "I feel entitled to you, and I need you to know that."
Now I wonder though, and I'm not. Please know I'm not at all trying to be argumentative with you. I'm
We'll
just.
see.
Now, the reason that she initially became aware of his feelings for her was
The wedding
because of,
video.
yeah, the wedding video. And up
Yeah.
until that point, yes, you're right. He did treat her horribly. She thought that he disliked her or even hated her.
Yep.
Even wondered. I think someone else may have wondered if he was actually in love with her husband himself, if it was a
Mhm.
jealousy thing. But the reason it did come out, he got busted. She went to look to see the wedding video. She saw the one that he shot. It was every shot was of her. It was close up
Yeah.
scenes of her because he was so obsessed with her. Now I wonder now if that had not happened, would there have been like him revealing it with the cards, with the big romantic scene that you referred to, or was that his way of trying to break the hard ice that was there now between them, saying, okay, yes, I am infatuated with you, but
Because it's not
that's
love.
it, and I'm moving forward.
'Cause she makes it very clear that he's never even spoken with her, like,
Yeah,
he's refused to. So
yeah,
that's not love, that is infatuation,
yeah. I think it's
and I
more of
do agree with
infatuation.
you. That is the impetus for him to do this romantic gesture. My
Yeah,
problem is that was not appropriate. It's
yeah,
not
no,
appropriate to treat someone like that just because you can't have them.
Yeah.
You need to
No. Yeah.
communicate, and you need to be like, "Hey, I have feelings for," even if you didn't tell her, tell your best friend, "I have
Yeah.
feelings for her, and it's uncomfortable, and I'm having a hard time around it, and I need some time to be able to work through this myself."
Yeah.
Uh and instead, in the meantime, it's just like, I'm gonna treat you really poorly and completely ignore you and act like you don't exist. And
Yeah.
then when you catch me, I'm gonna do a complete 180 and take off my Scooby Doo mask and be like, ah, actually, I love you. That's
Yeah.
crazy behavior.
Yeah.
And then to do it, and he's like, don't tell your husband, say it's carolers. Uh,
Yeah.
Seems really cheaty. What was he expecting? Like he could have at that point when he's caught been like, I'm really sorry. I have had feelings for you this whole time. I'm doing my best to work through them, and I'm sorry I've been so cold to you. It's very hard for me to deal with. I mean, like, can men in the early 2000s not put together a competent emotional sentence?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah.
Instead, he's gonna make this big show of it.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It
And
is
and I think
bizarre.
what annoys me the most is how much other people romanticize it.
Yeah, I
And
can
it's
I
like,
can totally see what you're saying there because yes, it is not a scene that you want to try to emulate that kind of thing in your own life and especially in terms of trying to have someone fall in love with you because that was not the situation there. Now, one another thing I'll give him, I don't want to say props for, but I did like that he wasn't trying to change her mind necessarily in that scene. At least it didn't seem like that to me. It was sort of like, okay, yes, this is how I feel about you. I'm done and moving on. Well, I guess the moving on part came actually when he walked away after she kissed him, where he said, okay, enough now, to himself, thinking, okay, I need to,
maybe.
yeah,
We don't
but
really know. There's no dialogue to that.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, he said that enough to himself to move on, but I totally see everything that you're saying there. That is creepy, and I guess there's some
I mean,
things.
it's not the most problematic. Obviously, the most
Yeah,
problematic is the chubby one, but it's
yeah,
one of those things where it's just like, for me, I'm not going to emulate that behavior. Like
yeah,
if my best friend was dating a guy and I was super into him, which thank God her and I do not share the taste at all. And my other best friend, no, we do not share taste at all, right? Like the three of us have completely opposite taste in every way. But if they were dating someone, for one, I would be honest with them. I'd be like, "Oh, I kind of I'm into it." And
mm-hmm,
then we'd have a discussion. But also, I have the ability to say, "Oh, you're with someone? You're no longer an option. I won't consider that anymore."
yeah,
And it feels like he just didn't have that boundary with himself or with her. And
yeah,
it feels like a lack of respect.
yeah, exactly.
And I
And I
just
think,
don't like the masses looking at that and going, "Oh, that's what love is. It's pining." No, it's not.
no,
That's what
you're right.
obsession is, and that's
Yeah,
unhealthy.
yeah, it was definitely an obsession slash infatuation, wherever you want to call it, more so than love. And I'll just say, I mean, I had a similar situation in my own life where I was actually obsessed with someone that one of my friends was with. I never said
You had
anything.
a Jesse's girl situation?
I guess, sort of. But, almost along the lines of what we see in this movie, maybe to a lesser degree. I didn't do anything quite as dramatic as Andrew Lincoln did here, but where I thought that I had fallen for this woman that was now with one of my best friends. I did not want to say anything to my best friend because I love my best friend. Didn't want to say anything
Yeah.
to her because actually I knew what was happening between them, the spark that was there. And I think for me, it was maybe at the time I thought it was love, but then looking back, I'm like, I think I was just like this lonely young guy who was kind of obsessed with this, this person that I had grown to care
Yeah.
about. And I'm not trying to justify what's in this fictional movie, but I mean, those kinds of things do happen. But I totally agree with you that the way that it was handled in this movie, well, they didn't handle it as well as I did in real
Yeah. It's
life.
it's not even that I'm upset that he has feelings for her,
Right.
because that happens.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's, "Oh, let's romanticize this borderline abusive behavior that he's done because he's super mean to her and cruel
Yeah.
and,
It
like, walks out of rooms when she comes in them, and
yeah.
it's like, "Oh, but it's fine because he loves you." It's the same it's the He threw rocks at you because he loves you. He pulled your hair because he loves you. He pushed you down because he loves you. And when you grow up, that trope becomes, "Oh, he hits you because he loves you, and he was
Yeah.
so upset." And
Yeah.
it's just that's how that works. And people
Right.
will be like, "That's dramatic." Alright, well, that's how that works.
Yeah.
I don't understand this weird ideology that women specifically are given of like, "Oh, he's picking on you because he likes you."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bizarre and it's not healthy, and I won't stand for it, buddy.
No.
I won't stand for it.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm flashing back to when I was a child, seeing those kinds of things when I was a kid, with
Yeah,
girls picking on boys, boys picking on girls. You'd always hear lines like that,
yeah.
you know?
And that is the line, and it might be true,
Yeah.
but it never comes with a lesson like, maybe he likes you, but we need to discuss what the proper way to handle those feelings is because it's not
Yes.
violence. It's not
Exactly.
abuse, either emotional or physical.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, is there other
Yes.
storylines in this that you don't care for?
No, I like everything else in this movie. There's one part that I like the absolute most, but I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit.
Okay. Well, I was before we started today, I actually made a list of just the different storylines, and there's like, I might have missed one or two. I picked out like 9 different storylines in this. I mean, like I said, there's a lot, and actually, it seems like you probably like the majority of the movie then.
I do.
I know, but those are you have. I'm not trying to debate or make light of what everything we talked about. Those are,
I'm not
certainly.
worried about it. I
Oh, I
don't
know.
want to debate things or to be like, this is how I feel. And if you continue to like this movie, you're bad. No, not at all. It's this is how I feel. This is why I feel this way. And I still understand why this is a beloved movie.
Yeah.
There's one of the very first lines of the movie makes the movie gives it a whole extra star on its own. And it's the Hugh Grant intro where he goes, one of my favorite, things is to see the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport.
Yes. Yeah.
That part, that is the one of the best lines and the best things to happen in a movie,
Yeah.
period. Which
Absolutely.
sucks that it happens in a movie that I have so much
Yeah.
internal turmoil with, but,
Yeah.
like, I'll watch the movie just for that part and for Colin Firth.
Yeah. And then of course, you have that at the opening, with you Grant saying that, but then at the very end of the movie, you see the people arriving at the airport, and that to me that's one that always kind of makes me tear up a little bit because it's just sweet because you
Absolutely.
you see family members, you see romantic partners, you see what looks like old like senior citizens hugging each other, and just love actually is everywhere. You know, and
Exactly.
and that's beautiful. Various things that I love about the movie. We mentioned Bill Nye. His story, Billy Mack is fantastic. His song "Christmas Is All Around." He's so funny in the
He's
movie.
so funny, and he hates it, and I think
Yeah,
that that's hilarious. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
exactly. I
Yeah,
love
and
it
you
because
were
they're
right earlier when you said each of these is a story about love and a story about a relationship. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. A lot of them are. But this
yeah.
is a story about love and friendship and your best friend, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like at the end of that storyline, he has a chance to go spend the whole night partying with Elton John at an Elton John party, and he leaves there because he knows he wants to be with his best friend because that is,
His
he,
buddy, yeah.
yeah. And I think he says, who knows, who would have thought you're the great love of my life? I'm paraphrasing. It's some sort of line like that, but
And it's great.
yeah, it is,
And I
and
think what's extra great about that, and we will give credit to Love Actually here, is that that's a storyline between 2 men,
yeah,
heterosexual men.
yeah,
And I think that that's really lovely because another thing that I feel like is really desperately missing in mainstream media is heterosexual men being good friends, actually sharing stuff with each other, and actually telling each other they love each other and giving each other hugs and all of that stuff, you
yeah,
know? I think
absolutely.
it's important.
Yeah, and I think that even going back to some classic, buddy movies from like decades ago, I think that was maybe the appeal of them too. Even if they didn't actually say that they loved each other, but you'd look at some things like even like the Lethal Weapon movies or something like that, where you had like these strong male characters who you knew there was like this amazing bond between them, where it was a love story in a way because there was that connection there.
It's
Speaking
just
of,
kinda sad that men don't just get to tell each other they love each other. Just
yeah,
friggin'
exactly.
just admit it. Admit that you have feelings and you care about someone. It's
Yeah.
not gay, and so it's
Yeah,
really nice that they're just like, "You know what? just love each other because
Yeah,
that's all that matters. Men want to be loved too, just as much as anyone
absolutely.
else.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I think that's something that maybe is a little bit better now than it was even when I was growing up or as a young adult. People are a little bit more open about sharing things, a little bit. We've got a ways to go with that. Um, I love Colin Farrell's storyline. I think you might have said that you liked. I'm sorry,
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth. Sorry, I just saw an advertisement for the Penguin with Colin Farrell, so I guess I'm thinking
Hmm.
of that. But Colin Firth, he is Jamie. He's a writer. He recently left a relationship because his girlfriend or wife was cheating on him with his brother, I believe, and he goes off to this cabin to write, and he has this woman hired to work for him that she is it Portuguese, I
She's,
think.
I don't know if she is Portuguese. I think she might be Brazilian, but she speaks Portuguese.
Oh, okay, that's right. They cannot speak to each other, but this relationship develops between them. It's very sweet. It's very
No.
sweet.
Give me
And
1 second. Hold on. I've got a
oh,
dog being bad.
okay.
Okay, we're good. It is very sweet.
But yeah, that's a very sweet storyline. I think it's funny. There's some very funny scenes there. Did we talk about like one of the funny scenes? I guess where he wrote the book and then it ends up in the pond,
No,
and
we
she.
haven't talked about it.
Oh, okay. I thought we talked about that one before, but that's a great scene where he has typed this book out, and they're outside, and I forget what
The
happens.
wind blows.
Yeah, yeah. I think they picked up a rock that was holding the papers down. And one thing I love about their relationship too is she will say things in her language that shows how she's feeling about what's going on. It's like, oh, how could this dummy not make a copy of what he wrote? He has no idea what she's saying, and it's vice
Yeah.
versa. That kind of thing happens, and this really wonderful relationship ends up, and of course they end up together. And the way that happens is a great scene where he goes to visit her family to ask the father's permission, and there's a lot of good stuff in there.
It's really sweet, and he does his best to, like, communicate that with her, and it's, I don't know. Colin Firth is, like, one of my favorites, and he always plays this a little bit more shy, kind of like
Yeah,
a little bit crotchety guy, but that's, like, incredibly loyal. Like, he's the perfect Mr. Darcy, you know?
yeah. So I love that. We talked about this. Well, you mentioned this one actor. This storyline with Liam Neeson and his stepson. It's Daniel is Liam Neeson and Sam is his stepson, and that's a sweet storyline. Unfortunately, they had just recently lost. Well, Sam's
Natasha
mother.
Richardson.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about real life because
Oh,
Liam
oh,
Neeson
oh, okay.
loses
No,
his
but
wife.
boy, that was horrible too. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, Natasha
yeah.
Richardson. That was just well, what a shocking, horrible thing happened with her.
For
But
those of you who don't know Natasha Richardson, who is also an actress, she's very famously, for my generation, known as the mom in the Parent Trap film with Lindsay Lohan.
that's right.
Was uh, hurt and then later pronounced dead after a skiing accident over
Yeah,
the holiday.
yeah, and she was married to Liam Neeson,
Yeah,
and
she was.
yeah, and she came from a very famous acting family too. I believe her sister is Vanessa Henderson. What's her last name? Henderson.
Richardson.
Richardson. I'm sorry.
Richardson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was just so tragic. But getting back to the movie, yeah, they unfortunately tragically lost, like I said, Liam's wife and Sam's mother, and you see, so there's as they're struggling going through that, Sam is struggling too because he's got really his first crush slash love with
Hmm.
this girl in school, Joanna, and it's this really sweet storyline. And Liam Neeson is wonderful in it as he's trying to bond with his stepson and help him with it and being very supportive of him. Sam wants to. He wants to learn how to play the drums to participate in this big holiday show, and he's
The
all
choir
behind.
concert.
Yes, yes, and it's just so sweet. And then one of my favorite scenes in the movie is at the end when they're going to the airport to so he has a chance to stop and talk to Joanna before she gets on the plane because she's moving with her
She's
family,
moving.
yeah,
Yes.
to the United States. And it's this great scene where he's running through the airport, security is chasing him, and that's another one for whatever reason it makes me tear up when I'm watching it. It's just really sweet.
Oh, I
Love
mean,
that.
it's great.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
It's so cute.
Yeah. It is.
Okay, so then the next one we should probably talk about is the Laura Linney one with her romantic thing and her brother thing.
Yeah, strangely, it's like you looked at my list because that's like the next thing on my list. How'd you like that one?
It's good. I don't have an issue with it. It is a little melancholy because it
It
doesn't
is.
have a fully happy ending. Because with that one, her brother has some sort of mental, handicap, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know exactly what
Disability.
it is, but he is in some sort of he lives at some other place because he needs care.
Well, and she's who cares for him. She's who takes care of him, and so she doesn't have really relationships outside of that because he needs her. Um, and she falls for this guy who I recognize from What to Expect When You're Expecting. Do you know what his name is? The
Yeah, I don't
Latin
know.
actor.
Oh, okay.
Um, but they kind of have a crush on each other, and she's very timid and quiet, and she's like, "Oh," and then they end up being able to get together, but obviously it's more of a we have this moment together thing instead of really getting to be together because at the end of the day she is always going to have to and will choose her brother over
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah, like you said, very melancholy, very sad. When I first watched the movie, probably the first multiple times I saw the movie, I would say that that storyline almost annoyed me in a way.
Yeah.
Just because, all these other things were lighter. Well, not all of them, but the majority of them were lighter, a little bit more fun. We mentioned in the previous episode of the series that we're doing that I almost in some ways had an attitude against Laura Linney from her role in
Truman Show.
the Truman Show. I keep forgetting the damn name in the movie in the Truman Show, and which is certainly unfair of me. But over time, that storyline in Love Actually kind of grew on me, and I think maybe that's in part too from me aging over the past over 20 years now since the movie came out.
Yeah.
You see different things in your own life where you know that sometimes a responsibility, say like a sibling or a family member or even friend who has problems, does have to take precedence over maybe your own personal goals sometimes.
They don't have
They
to,
don't
but
have to, but sometimes you're in that tough
oftentimes
position.
they do. Like,
Yeah,
she could have absolutely chosen to have him in a care facility and let them
yeah,
take care of it and let herself have her own life.
yeah.
But a lot of people don't have the ability to be that selfish. I personally don't know if I would be able to be selfish in that way. And I don't mean selfish as a negative thing, but that is
Hmm.
something you do for yourself, right?
Yeah,
Um and and I don't have any inkling of what the right thing is. Is the right thing for her to be wasting her, late 20s, early 30s, I think is how old she was at that point?
hmm,
Would it be to put him in a facility?
yeah,
Would it be for her to live her own life? I don't have the answer because
yeah,
maybe she's living her own life and she's always eaten by guilt, and that causes her to drink more. So now she's an alcoholic. Who knows? All of
yeah.
these things snowball, and I also get annoyed when you're watching a lighter film that has that dark, like one dark little
Hmm.
subplot. Um, but again, now that I too am older, I'll watch it and I'll go, "Yep, sometimes, sometimes things don't work
Yeah.
forever."
And I think too with even some of the other storylines that we've mentioned too. But it is even though it's a movie, it does touch upon these things that do happen in people's real lives. Like
They're all realistic
yeah, oh,
storylines,
absolutely. Well, I was going to go
in
back
some
to
in some capacity.
yeah, like even the storyline with Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman. Yeah, yes, families, and again, I'm not saying it's right in any way, but families go through things like that, and then you see like at the end of the movie, it looks like they are still together. So they're having to, they're dealing with that moving forward. Now, whether or not they're divorced at that point, I don't know, but
I don't feel like they are together. I feel like they're looking civil in front of their children, and that's it.
well, okay. Well, that's maybe that's more of along of lines of what I should have said. For whatever reason, they're going to have to, in that case, be in each other's lives in
They're
one
gonna
way
have to
or another.
co-parent.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess even though it's a movie, they do touch upon these things that can happen
Yeah.
in real lives, and it's interesting in that regard.
I mean, honestly, the only storyline that's fanciful is the, Colin Firth one, where he's a writer and he's getting to write somewhere and he
Yeah,
falls in love with a girl that they can't talk to. That's the only one that's, like, the most outlandish.
yeah. One other one I think comes darn close though, if not more outlandish, and that's the guy who wants to go off to America to find a woman. Uh,
The
you know,
porn
uh,
one?
huh? Chris Marshall, he's Colin. the one who he wants to, he goes, "Oh, no, I can't get English girls to fall for me. So I'm going to go
Oh,
off
because of his accent, so he
because of his
goes.
accent." So he comes back with 3 supermodels.
Okay, it's a little outlandish, but if I'm being really honest, the British accent's a really good one. And then, yeah, so there's that one. That one's a really small subplot, and then
Oh,
the
it
the
is.
porn one
Oh
cracks
gosh, yeah, I
me
always
up.
forget about the porn one with Martin Freeman.
That one cracks me up.
That's
I
hilarious,
love
hilarious.
it.
And that's a nice thing to throw into in the midst of some of these other like more serious storylines. Just for like because it is so silly, but but it's sweet. Even though they're these
It is.
actors who are, well, they're I guess they're doubles or stand-ins for a porn movie or multiple porn movies, but they have this nice. They're kind of like very shy the way they interact with each
Oh,
other, and
shy. That's the best part is that
yeah,
they're
I know.
porn stars that are shy.
It-
Oh my god, that one might be one of my top
Yeah, that is a
for
lot
this
of
one.
fun. I think we hit upon most of them, if not all of them. So yeah, it's an
I can't
interesting.
think of one that we've missed.
No, me either. And like we said, they are loosely tied together. Like for example, well, we didn't talk too much about the one with. We talked about it briefly, but the one with Hugh Grant, he is the prime minister, and I think he is, isn't he? Emma Thompson's brother or someone's brother.
Emma Thompson's.
Yeah, it's Emma Thompson's brother. So they're although they don't spend much time on that. I don't even think we barely even know that until a little later in the movie.
And then the other tie-in with also Hugh Grant's is that, I think it's Natasha or whatever that he's wanting to date,
Hmm.
her niece is Joanna. So then that
Uh,
ties us into Joanna, that ties us into the Liam Neeson one. I feel like Liam Neeson is also in some way related to Emma Thompson's storyline, but
I know they're good friends. I remember,
yeah,
as a matter of fact, I remember them having a phone conversation where she's kind of like, kind of like being a little harsh with him, saying, "Hey, you need to get on with things. Stop,
yeah.
yeah." And
So it is all interconnected. I'm trying to figure out Bill Nye, how is he connected to the rest of the group?
oh, that's a good question. I don't know if he necessarily is, other than the fact that they all know who he is because
He
he's
is.
been a
It's
pops.
too smart for them to have not done it. I think we're just forgetting how they come together in the end.
Yeah, I was wondering if I'm not sure. I
Maybe
really
it's just that he's at the airport at some point when everyone else is.
maybe maybe yeah. I think we are missing something.
We are. We're forgetting
Yeah,
because that's how those ones are together.
yeah.
The porn stars, I feel like, are friends with someone else.
Yeah, the porn stars. We mentioned Chris Marshall's character Colin, the one who goes off to the states to find a woman. His best
Hmm.
friend, I don't know the character's name, but it's played by a black actor, and he is, I think, like some sort of cameraman or cinemat or director on these porno movies that Martin Freeman is in. So there's that connection there. I remember him working somehow on the crew of those movies. Don't know his
Okay.
name. But yeah, I'm really curious about Bill Nye now. How it seems like there's something we're missing, but we'll figure it
You're
out.
gonna make me watch this damn movie, aren't you? Just so I
And
can
you're gonna find you
remember.
like it more than ever.
No, I won't.
No, I know. I'm not trying to change your mind on anything, and I'm really glad we
I
talked about this because it gives me I don't know, some different ways to look at it myself.
perspective, insight. Here's the thing is I'm not going to sit here and go, I can't believe you like that movie.
Oh, I know.
How dare
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
It's
of
just
course.
like these are my feelings I have about it. Some of them are quite personal that make them
Yeah.
feel a little more amplified for me specifically, and
Hmm.
I understand why other people enjoy it. I don't like I wouldn't say I actually hate the movie. I was being more hyperbolic. But if I'm looking at the holiday movies I'm going to put on, this isn't the one I want to choose.
Yeah, I understand that.
Which is a bummer because it has a lot of good moments. Anything Bill Nye is doing, anything Colin Firth is doing in the movie, the opening line about, loved ones at
Yeah,
the airport, the arrivals gate, that's like changed my life, that line.
yeah,
The
it's
Thomas Brody
wonderful.
Singer line, lovely. With him like in his first crush, that's adorable.
Yeah, it is.
Um, so it has a lot of good, and I understand absolutely why it's such a cult classic and why people love it so much. And so it's a bummer that these three things kind of stick out so bad to the point where it sours you almost on the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a bummer. And it's interesting. You said something a couple minutes ago that I was unaware of. You had mentioned that Natalie was I guess the aunt of Joanna. I didn't somehow I've always missed that. Always missed
Yeah,
that
I'm
part.
pretty sure because aren't
Yeah, I
they
think you're right.
or she's the aunt of someone who's in the choir because that's how Hugh Grant ends up at the choir concert.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think you Grant ends
Oh,
up
no,
there.
wait, it's because of Emma Thompson's kids are in the choir concert.
Yeah. Well,
That's
he ends up
it's
there
Hugh
because he went
Grant's
to
the
visit
reason.
Natalie and he was in the car with her. And then he just
Yeah,
kind of
and they've got the
stumbled
little kid
upon
who's
going
a
to see
Christmas
their.
octopus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Emma Thompson's like, oh, I never thought you'd come. And he actually had no intention of going, but he was in the car with
Yeah,
Natalie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of brilliant the way they tie the storylines together.
I love when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And even though I'm not a huge fan of the movie, I am glad that you picked it and that we talked about it because I would not pick it on my own. So thank you for bringing something a little bit different to the Binge It Babe pod.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And I'll tell you, I've loved being a guest on these episodes. I know this is an extra
Yeah,
episode, but was this like the fourth one we done in a row, something like
it
that?
has.
It's been a
Yeah.
blast. I love it.
Well, this one's a bonus one, and I know this
That's
might
right.
sound silly to neurotypical people. It's a bonus one because if I numbered this one, it would be 51, and that annoyed me. But if I call it a bonus episode, it's just season 1 bonus, and it doesn't get a number.
And big congrats to you though for hitting 50 with the podcast. That is awesome. That is
Ooh,
awesome.
50.
It's a lot of people who don't have podcasts. I mean, they're a lot of work. And Candace, boy, you put a heck of a lot of work into yours. I mean, not everyone has food and costumes and things for their podcasts. And
I
I
should
tell
have
you, your
dressed up
show's
like an octopus for this one.
your show's great. Your show's, and I was
Thank
really
you so
happy to
much.
be on it. You're welcome.
I'm really happy you're here. Now, obviously, these are coming out in December. It's the end of the year, so you might not have much going on, but can you tell the people where they can find you, what you do, and all of that stuff? Because we kind of have forgotten to do that.
Yeah, well, my name is Buddy Gott. I host two podcasts of my own. One is about pop culture, mostly music, but we also cover movies and TV. And sometimes I talk to my friends about those things. Sometimes I have guests on the show who, work in those fields. That's called Gotta Pop. And more recently, I've started a podcast about books that's called Buddy's Book Buddies, where I've done four shows, I think, so far. And in each of those, I have interviewed writers about books they've written. And in future episodes, it's going to contain me just talking to fellow readers and book lovers about, including Candace Estelle here, about books that they love. In addition, I write an awful lot about pop culture and other things online, usually on medium.com. And I am which is where Candace Estelle is, and that's how we got to know each other, which is wonderful.
And
And
where you should be writing for with me at the pub.
exactly. And I have something actually I'm going to be sending to you. I started work on something about
Okay,
a new TV show that I like a lot.
cool, cool.
It's called Dr. Odyssey, and more about that later.
Yeah.
And what else? Oh, and I'm also currently writing my first novel, which is
Woohoo!
a lot of fun. A lot of work. It's a lot of fun.
Yep,
And I
yep,
can be found on buddygotwrites.com or just Google me. I'm all over the place.
yep. Okay, well, goodbye, babes. Goodbye, buddy. Thank you so much. And we will see you next year for season 2 of the Binge It Babe pod. Bye,
Thanks again,
babes.
kids. Bye, babes.